In some 11 years since the blockade was imposed, the debate looks something like this. Hamas is to blame for creating and perpetuating the humanitarian crisis in Gaza because the militant organisation continues to launch attacks on Israelis even after Israel's complete withdrawal from the land in 2005, resulting in an Israeli and Egyptian blockade. That blockade remains and cannot be lifted because Hamas continues to use its time and resources to attack Israel and seeks the Jewish state's destruction rather than create a sustainable life for its residents in Gaza. On the other side of the debate, Israel is to blame for creating and perpetuating the humanitarian crisis in Gaza because it occupied the land after the 1967 war and then, after giving the land back, imposed a crippling blockade on the Strip along with Egypt. The result is 1.8 million Palestinians living in what's being called an open-air prison. Joining me in studio, member of the Fatah movement, the ruling faction in the West Bank, Ahmed Ghoneim, former deputy head of assessment of Israeli military intelligence, retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neriah, and I24 News senior Middle East correspondent Mohammed Al-Kassim. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you with us. Of course, a lot of history to get your head around, a very complex debate that goes around and around in circles, and we're going to try and unpack it now, if we can. Dr. Jacques Neriah, I'm going to get you to start. Taking us back now to 2007, did Israel have a choice as to whether to impose a blockade?
Well, let me go even further. When we negotiated the agreement, the Oslo agreement between us and the Palestinians, what was behind our the goal was in fact to separate between us and the Palestinians. And this is what stood at the basis of the agreement between us and the Palestinians at the time when I was the policy advisor of Yitzhak Rabin. Basically, we thought, maybe we were wrong in thinking, that this would lead to kind of coexistence. At that time, we still had Netzarim, which was 1/3 of Gaza, in the hands of Israelis, settlers who were there, and this was, in fact, to be evacuated in a second stage. We never thought that Gaza would be a place where that would fire rockets and missiles against Israel. This is definitely, I mean, I don't even dare thinking that Rabin had in his mind. The only thing that he would say always, that why would we go on an agreement with the Palestinians rather than with the Syrians? Because with the Palestinians we can always go back. It's whereas with the Syrians we'll have to wage war. In fact, this was an argument for the sake of an argument, and the things that developed on the ground proved that we were dead wrong about what would happen in the next years.
Once Hamas was now in control of that strip, of course, perhaps Israel didn't see it coming. Did Israel have a choice? Was this the only option that Israel had?
Well, what was the choice? I mean, you had an organization that is part of the Muslim Brothers, who do not recognize Israel, who seeks to destroy Israel, declares very openly. So what would be the answer? The answer would say, please come and kill us.
Okay.
This is the equation you're talking about. So we had just to stop. And in fact, I mean, you're talking about a blockade. It's not a blockade because all the food that goes, I mean, all the things that are imported into Gaza come from Israel. You have more than 500 trucks every day coming into Gaza from Israel. So I mean, if we close that, it would be the end of it.
Looking at the current scenario, what choice does Israel have now?
Look, continue blaming each other. This is not strategy. We have to find a way how to go out of this current situation and to end the occupation and to end
that is the ultimate question, isn't it?
This is done.
No, but actually, there's no occupation.
There is a siege. Siege is part of occupation.
Okay, so let's talk about the blockade. So what other choice does Israel have?
We didn't have partner in Israel. In Israel, there is a prime minister without any clear strategy. He's run out from one round of violence to other round of violence. He's caring for his chair more than he's caring for the people in Israel.
What's the strategy of Hamas then?
The strategy in Hamas had been changed, but nobody in Israel want to see that. They had, before 8 months ago, they had declared documents which are talking about a new political program for Hamas. They announced that they accept the solution according to the... they didn't announce clearly two-state solution, but they accept the principle of the Palestinian state to be on the boundaries of 1967, which means two-state solution. This is new, but nobody in Israel wants to see that. The Prime Minister of Israel is working hard day and night how to protect the split of the Palestinians and prevent the unity in the Palestinians. To blame the Palestinians that they didn't have a clear address to talk with or a clear partner to talk with. This is the fact on the ground.
When we're talking about facts on the ground, though, I want to go back to what. Okay, so it seems that there isn't a clear strategy, at least from all the Palestinian factions that are divided in the Gaza Strip and in the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and here in Israel. Let's look at what Hamas is doing and its responsibility here. Is it working to ease the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip by any other means other than attacking Israel?
Well, they're saying that. They're saying that it's not only a matter of military solution. However, if that's the only means forward, then they will adopt it.
Is that the only means forward? Because obviously aid is going into the Gaza Strip. Where is that going?
It depends who you're asking. And also, probably there is no other solution in the eyes of Hamas officials other than to engage with Israel, either militarily or start something that they started at the end of March. They called it the March of Return. And they have attracted the international community's eyes and focus and shifted the focus from other locations around the region, which has been hampered with so many conflicts. And now the international community is looking at Gaza, looking at the dire humanitarian and economic situation of Gaza. And that, Hamas says, of how we are getting the attention needed to help alleviate the dire situation in the Gaza Strip.
Now, when it comes to the question of toppling Hamas and what that in fact looks like, our Ami Kaufman actually sat down with Israel's Minister for Regional Cooperation, Tzachi Hanegbi. Let's take a quick listen to what he had to say.
Your government, it's your Prime Minister Netanyahu, who promised to topple Hamas.
Yes, toppling Hamas is possible, but there is a price tag. And we will have to make a decision sooner or later whether we want to pay this price tag, because if we go into Gaza, which we might do it one day, the result will be that we will take care of Hamas, we will kill many terrorists, but we still have to make a decision, what is the exit strategy? Are we want to stay and take care of 2 million miserable people and to take the taxpayers' money in order to make sure that they live not like they live now? So it's a dilemma that we are challenged with for a long time.
Now, of course, the full interview will air on the Spin Room at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, so tune in for that. Dr. Neriah, who can rule Gaza? If not the Palestinian Authority. Of course, Abbas can't go into Gaza off the back of an Israeli tank if there's an Israeli tank takeover. So what option is there?
Things are not black and white. You know, in politics, there are lots of shades of grey. And depicting the picture as if the only solution would be to go inside Gaza and topple Hamas, this is not the solution. We have to be much more creative. The solution is in Ramallah. The solution is in Ramallah. Israel has to look at Ramallah as the partner. I mean, this is maybe a bad partner. This is the worst partner that we could have, maybe the best partner we could have right now. We don't know who would succeed to Abbas. Who would, maybe somebody who would not like to speak to us at all. I mean, maybe it would be even worse than Abbas. But the solution for Israel is to, I mean, we have signed an agreement with the Palestinian Authority. This is our address. Our address should be the Palestinian Authority, and we should work with the Palestinian Authority in order to settle down the problem of Gaza. This is how I see it. In the course of a comprehensive agreement between us and the Palestinians concerning how we can coexist in the next 10, 20, 30 years ahead.
Does the Palestinian Authority feel it's capable of ruling the Gaza Strip, of taking over?
Sure, we continue on the reconciliation process through our colleagues or our brothers on the Egyptian side, and I believe that we will achieve the unity. There are serious obstacles in front of us. It's not easy, but
what are those obstacles?
So the obstacles, that's We are asking Hamas to participate in the authority, but to give the government the ability to rule Gaza. Actually,
why won't they give over to that?
Hamas is part of the Brotherhood, the International Brotherhood. This is the only place that they are ruling now. They want to keep it. They are caring to continue keeping it in their hand. But there is a serious debate within Hamas about that. I believe that they will succeed to pass the line that will accept the principles of the unity, and the reconciliation process will succeed soon.